So I'll go ahead and get started. Uh, if you want to continue to learn more, feel free to join ServiceNow experts and peers in our future events. Let me just put the link to our other events here in the chat, just in case you don't have access to that QR code. So let's just, before we get started or jumping in, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's event. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions you may have during our event. We'll try to answer them throughout the session or at the end. We also will be sharing today's presentation and recording after the event. And I will put the location of that presentation and the recording where it will be, where you can catch our other sessions as well. I will put that there. Also, I just want to repeat again that the session will be recorded. Some people ask that question a lot, and the presentation and the recording will be shared in the link I just put in. After this webinar, you'll be prompted to fill out a short survey. Your feedback is super important and valuable to us. So if you have the time, please take that survey after the webinar. This is our safe harbor slide, which is there to keep our lawyers happy. We want to always keep them happy, right? To summarize what it says, because there's a lot of words, you may see some forward-looking statements today. Please don't make any purchasing decisions based on anything in today's webinar. Okay, now that the preliminaries are out the way, let's get into the meat of our presentation. This is our second Academy series for Service Operations Workspace, where today we'll be only focused on the people, process, and platform. Basically, a holistic approach to Service Operations Workspace transition. And we have some amazing experts for you today to talk about those subjects. Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Lindsay Poston. I'm a staff change manager. I've been with ServiceNow for 3 years, and my expertise lies in organizational change management, particularly in understanding and guiding behavioral shifts within products and processes.
Awesome, thanks. Paula?
Yes, hello, I'm Paula Molina Kristen. I am an outbound product manager for ITSM. And yes, I've been 2.5 years in the ITSM BU before I was in expert services. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And then Tosh?
Hi everyone, I am Tash. I am a staff software engineer with ITSM product team. I'm based in UK, as Fox mentioned. My team works primarily on change management, SLA, agent assist, CAB, and basically porting a lot of those functionalities over to SOW, maintaining them. And I've been with ServiceNow for almost 6 years now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's great to have such a great team to support this effort today. I'm Brittany Lassiter. I have been with ServiceNow for a little under a year as a senior product excellence manager. I've been a customer and partner, just like some of you all on the call. During that time, for about 10 years, during that time, I was an IT service manager, process owner, and I love process. It's one of my favorite things, and I also like ServiceNow. That being said, I do have my ITIL Master 4 or ITIL 4 Master certification, as well as a ServiceNow sysadmin cert. I've been leading this Academy Series effort to ensure we increase utilization and adoption for Service Operations Workspace, which alludes to this slide as well. If you joined the other session, you might have been familiar with this slide. But with the Service Operations Workspace Academy Series, we want to help you get the maximum value from Service Operations Workspace, empowering admins, gearing up our process owners with that information. So we had our first session last month on getting started with SOW, where I went over plugins needed for SOW roles. I showcased the configuration of audiences for landing pages and even dashboards. My manager, Mitesh, he showed the configuration of incident forms in SOW. And let me put the last month's session in, just so in case you would like to watch it. It's pretty cool, pretty informative. But today is all about people, process, and platform when transitioning to SOW. This is our tentative schedule. So subject to change, we do get customer feedback, and sometimes we might change it to something that is more relevant in the industry. All right. So what does a session on people, process, and platform look like for Service Operations Workspace? So today's agenda, I think I heard someone ask the question of what does that look like? I'm glad you asked. Well, first, it's reviewing the benefits of SOW. Maybe you are using UI 16 or you're migrating from Agent Workspace and want to know why. We will review that in a bit, just for like 2 minutes. And then we'll then get into the people part. When utilizing a different interface like Service Operations Workspace, that can lead to behavioral changes in how you work or how your users work, or potentially how any of your team works, maybe fulfillers, resolvers, problem managers, any of those personas. It changes the way you work. So we do have Lindsay. I'm not sure you heard her title, but she's going to be talking about discussing the organizational change management to help with that transition. We'll also cover what migrating from Agent Workspace entails. So those first 3 agenda items should be about 15 minutes, but we'll spend majority of our time with what we get when we get into the process and platform piece. Can you guess the process? Maybe it's a hint on the agenda. Okay, great. It's IT change management, where we'll showcase some of our IT change management features and configure the overview tab in Service Operations Workspace. So I'm really excited about that. We have Tosh speaking on that. Please note that there's a distinct difference between organizational change management, which focuses on people, how they work today, how they work tomorrow. And of course, IT change management. I know I have some experts in the IT field that understand what that is. That's focusing on the technology, the environment, maybe like scripts changes, things like that. So I just want to call out those 2 differences. Now let's move on to the next part of our agenda. Understanding the benefits of Service Operations Workspace. Whether you're currently using UI 16 or Agent Workspace, transitioning to SOW offers significant advantages that can enhance productivity, streamline processes, and even improve collaboration within your organization. So let's see that slide. All right, so achieving productivity is a key benefit in ITSM with creating successful business outcomes. SOW is built around this principle and optimizes the people element to drive overall productivity. So if we look at the benefits on those 3 benefits there, these are just a few I'm calling out, by the way. SOW has so many benefits, but it helps users execute processes more efficiently, and it can be persona-based, ensuring relevant tools and information for their job. And it also improves collaboration for faster problem solving and knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is essential for resolving incidents, right? So those are all the benefits. Now that we've discussed those, such as achieving productivity, process adherence, and improving collaboration, it's important to recognize that transitioning to SOW involves more than just adopting new technology. It requires a shift in how we work and interact with these tools. This brings us to the critical topic, one of my favorite topics, organizational change management. It's effective OCM, organizational change management, is essential to ensure smooth transition to help everyone adapt to new interfaces and processes of SOW. And to delve deeper into this, we have Lindsay, who will guide us through the principles and practices of organizational change management, highlighting its importance in our journey to moving to SOW. So I'll hand it over to Lindsay.
Thanks, Brittany. So like Brittany said, organizational change management guides employees through a change journey. We're talking about the people involved in the change. It's transitioning users from how work is done today to how it'll be done tomorrow. And most often we prefer what we're comfortable with, and it's just our human nature to stress about upcoming changes. So OCM plays a crucial role in easing that resistance by addressing concerns and fears of the unknown. It's that structured approach to transition. It reduces that uncertainty and fosters a sense of security. Effective OCM ensures that communication channels remain open. We're actively seeking feedback, which then helps us make adjustments to align with our evolving needs. It's that culture of adaptability and resilience, equipping us with the skills and mindset necessary to embrace those changes. So on any project, OCM should be brought in early for a multitude of reasons. Those reasons you'll see now on the right side of the screen, but a few that I usually like to point out and that resonate with me the most is, Brittany, if you'll hit next, please.
Yep.
So my first favorite is to ensure stakeholders are engaged early because it helps create the story on what's happening. It's the what's in it for me and tells the story of how it impacts them. And so we can start building participation and support. It can also help leaders understand the project impacts to their teams in a non-technical lens. And so they can really get down to what it means for them too. And lastly, the one that I like to mention is improving adoption rates. Even if your system implementation is so successful, the overall project may not be if users aren't aware or if they're not trained on how to use it. So moving to our next slide, effective OCM hinges on transforming attitudes and actions. And it's those 4 fundamental components, and each one is tailored to suit your preferred absorption methods of your stakeholders. So let's look at each 4. The first one is designing the strategy. The OCM plan contains everything you see on this slide, such as program narrative, stakeholder assessment, communications, training, and support strategies. But diving into the first one under designing the strategy is that program narrative. This is your elevator pitch about this project in non-technical terms. This is where you tell the what's in it for me for each stakeholder group, and you craft that story that resonates with everyone. When writing a narrative about Service Operations Workspace, rather than focusing on something like reducing clicks, we can tell a story about how this technology optimizes the people element to help day-to-day productivity and collaboration. When we're designing the strategy, it's also beneficial to identify stakeholders and assess their level of impact. It gives you the opportunity to understand each group, their processes and workflows, and what their requirements for a new system may entail. For those stakeholders who are highly impacted, more communications and training you'll want to invest in. But then for those who are less impacted, just keeping them informed with no training may suffice. So documenting that helps you tailor your communication and training plans, which leads us into getting the word out, that communication plan. You'll want to communicate to stakeholders early and often. This is not one and done. And effective communication ensures alignment of objectives, it enhances transparency and trust, builds relationships, ensures accountability, and manages expectations. We keep stakeholders informed and engaged. You can navigate complexities, resolve issues, and deliver expected value more efficiently. So again, communication is not a one and done scenario. We want to keep the awareness going up until go live and even after if you plan to keep updating to the latest release. So while we're keeping everyone informed throughout the process and throughout the transition, you'll begin to ready the team. Training equips employees with the necessary knowledge and skills to adapt these new technologies and boost their confidence. So to help you get started, please reference the resources slide of this presentation where we have links to materials on Now Create. We also recommend utilizing knowledge-based articles. This is something ServiceNow specific, and we refer to them as KBs, kind of like online articles where you can type up FAQs, provide links to people, and it's searchable and available for everyone. The last component is support and feedback. This occurs at and post go live. So supporting the people going through the change, that may look like hosting office hours a few times a week, or even having like a WebEx or Teams channel where users can reach out to you directly for support. And post go live, we like to understand user perspectives by asking for their feedback. It provides insights, drives continuous improvement, and it can identify challenges and help us mitigate risk while encouraging innovation. In some instances, ServiceNow may reach out for feedback as a continuous loop to ensure Service Operations Workspace is continuously improving. So if you've heard anything I've said today, I hope that you hear this. My ask of you is to please incorporate a change plan into your Service Operations Workspace transition. Effective organizational change management is essential for a successful implementation. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Brittany.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. She's right. You have to have an OCM plan. And I want to reiterate the importance of OCM even for admins. As you create release notes, which are an essential tool for communicating changes in software, especially when it's a new UI and it's altering how tasks are completed, Feel free to include the behavioral changes in the release notes to help with a smooth transition and even user awareness. All right, having discussed the importance of organizational change management, let's now focus on the practical aspect of this transition. One of the key steps is moving from your current interface, and maybe you are on Agent Workspace. Migrating from Agent Workspace involves several considerations and steps and tools, and I'll hand it over to Paula.
Yes, hello. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, I will just give a hint from our next session on Wednesday of what the migration utility is. So first of all, the Agent Workspace was deprecated on March of last year. And since then, we have created the migration utility tool, which helps companies migrate easier. So in next session, I will be going through which configurations can be migrated, which cannot be migrated, and which ones do not need to be migrated. So yes, so we are still working on this tool, and yes, so it's a tool we built for you to make your transition easier, and just for you to know that you can either do a complete migration, a partial migration, but once you have migrated some features, you cannot go back. You can only migrate them once. So yes, I will be going over that, and I will be doing also a live demo on this feature. And yes, thank you. And if you have questions, yes, let me know. And yes, I pass it over to you, Brittany.
Okay, and Paula, if you can put in the chat the link to the next, if they could register to the next event, that would be great. And I think I see some questions in the chat. If you guys would please use the Q&A, that would be awesome. I think there was a question around, or a statement struggling on what should display on landing pages. We actually talked about audiences and landing pages in a couple of our sessions before. So please make sure to check out the YouTube ITSM sessions from Adoption series, as well as the Academy series for Service Operations Workspace. We go over those landing pages a lot. And I do see that there are some concerns about the UI experience. We take your feedback seriously, and we do hear that from our customers a lot. I think when we talk about clicks, I think productivity is beyond clicks. When we think about this, it's really about understanding how does service operations feed into the actual KPI that you're trying to get. So if you have a knowledge or recommended actions, or the access to knowledge quickly, you also have that to say that this productivity and that those answers are right there where you need it. Instead of having to go through different places to find the information that you need. So there's different ways of productivity outside of just clicks and the UI and UX experience. But I have went on off subject there, and we're going to answer your questions in the Q&A. But now that we've covered the migration from Agent Workspace to SOW, and Paula's going to put the link to the registration for the next one in the chat, and you can register for learning about Agent Workspace to SOW. Let's move on to the next part of our session. So this is the largest part of our session. It's the process and platform piece. Who doesn't love process? Who doesn't love platform? ServiceNow, processes, love it. This segment will focus on the process of IT change management within the Service Operations Workspace interface. Using IT change management within SOW is similar to UI 16 in many ways, but it may look different and includes features that UI 16 may not offer. I would like to distinctively call out that there is no migration from UI 16 today. There's just a transition to SOW. And of course, there's a migration for Agent Workspace. But from that, I will hand it over to Tosh.
Thank you very much, Brittany. Let me show you some of the fun stuff we've been working on in change management. So let me very quickly share my screen. So I will start with doing a little recap and showing you all probably something that you're already pretty well familiar with. So how do we handle change right now if we are going for the classic UI or what we call UI 16? So if I navigate and search in my all and search for change, I find a way to create a new change, for example. So let's go ahead and try to do that. So let's go and create a new change. And in my case, I'll go super simple. I will go with a normal change. So that's what I'm going to make. And of course, once we have the form pop up, we can populate all of the relevant information and all of the necessary pieces of this information. So for example, let's pick one of the services available. So this is the one I've been experimenting with earlier. We can pick our service offering, our configuration item. We can do set our priorities. So in this case, let's say it's a moderate priority, but it has a low impact. And let's say that it is deploy network configuration. Scrolling down, we also have a variety of sections available to us, and they ask for quite a lot of information. So they ask you to obviously provide, because changes can vary in complexity and impact. They ask for quite a lot of information to provide in terms of why you're doing this, how you're going to do this, what are the risks, how you're planning to revert it if the change fails. And of course, last but not least, this is a very important part, how you're planning to verify that your change is actually working as expected. So that's the key part of the planning. But also in addition to that, you at this point, even before you created the change, you already can fill your schedule and you already ask to get your schedule in. You already have the conflict UI. There are notes information. And weirdly, even before we have created the change, we can also already go ahead and provide the closure information. So this spans from the fact that the forms in UI 16, unless you provide quite a lot of customization by the client scripts or via the UI policies, you end up with kind of this more or less static experience, regardless of where your record, or in this particular case, your change is at in the process. And what's quite nice, we do have a banner for you, which shows you where you are and how many steps you have left until your change is hopefully closed and good to go. But of course, the rest of the form doesn't really change. The rest of the form kind of stays pretty much static unless you invest a decent amount of time to provide those client scripts or to provide those UI policies to amend that. So let's very quickly save this one. And I'll just take you through the rest of the process. So after that, we of course can go ahead and request approvals. And in this case, we have not populated the sign-in group. So helpfully, we've been prompted to go ahead and populate it. So I'll set it to hardware. Then can go ahead and request approvals because I'm a system administrator. And of course, at the bottom, you can see all of the related lists information. So you know what your affected CIs are, what are your impacted services, and you can go ahead and add additional ones or remove them from here. What I'm interested in right now is approvers. Because I am a system admin, I can just go ahead and very quickly approve one of them. I believe this particular change is going to have a second layer of approval. So we are in authorized state now. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this again. So now finally, we have gotten to scheduled state. But if you notice, we haven't actually populated our planned start date or planned end date. So we can go ahead and do that. So I'll just very quickly add something here. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I would like to implement it. And of course, once you start implementation, your actual start date automatically populates because you have said, hey, I have started implementation now. So from this point on, I can basically go ahead and say, okay, let's say the actual end time is going to be an hour later. I will finish this. I will go ahead and put this change into review. I'll put it to close. And of course, again, I have forgotten to wait the fields. All clear. So, and I go to close. So this is kind of, and if you notice, the form hasn't actually changed much when we're going through this. The form remained pretty static. And again, you can customize it and you can build a customization to it. And the form is static intentionally. This is to basically cater for pretty much every single possible use case because we don't know how exactly your change process looks like. We try to give you essentially the most common denominator and then let you go ahead and customize and change things from there. One of the things which we were experimenting with during the hackathons as a part of our engineering group, we have been thinking about how we can make these things better and how we can focus your attention better on just the things which needs to be completed at any particular step in the process. Because of course we have our lovely step on top, and it gets you a lot of information of where you are at the journey, how many steps are left, but not much else. So this is something which we've been targeting with what we've been doing in SOW for change. So if I go ahead and try to do basically the same thing we just performed in UI16, but in SOW, let's go and create a brand new change request. So much the same as what you've seen with the change request in Classic UI. You have a little picker with the cards, you have ability to search, it has all of your templates, all of your change templates is still here, still available to you, and of course you have all of the usual suspects for the change. So I go ahead and I'm also going to make a normal change. And when I will jump in, you will see that the first thing which greets you is not the full form. It's the simplified and much smaller view, which of course also has our stepper in place to show you where you are in the process. But also here it's asking just for the information you need to provide when your change is not opened yet. So let's go ahead and say update network configuration. Of course, here you're also asked to provide justification and description, which you can fill. And then you can go ahead and save them, and this will save and create your brand new change. Once your change is created, you are also going to start seeing some information and some useful and relevant information in the side tab. And what's great about the sidebar, it is persistent no matter where you are and what tab you are going into. So this means that this one is always available to you, and you can kind of use it to have the important information shown to you. Equally, if you don't want to see it, you can just go ahead and collapse it to give more space to the central section. So at this point, I have a number of sections available to me. And my change right now is in a new state. So now I have my summary, of course, and I can go ahead and edit it if I would like to. But also, I have a scope and impact. So this is now starting to take me step by step for everything I need to fill and add to my change to make it fully fledged. So let's go ahead and add my scope. And scope, of course, is our affected CIs and impacted services. So I can go ahead and say, let's set our configuration item to Annie and our service much the same as before to BlackBerry. Once I save it, you will also see that the cards here will get populated with the numbers. This is to reflect the number of affected CIs or impacted services. When you go ahead into any of them, it will display a list for you. And what you can do also, you can of course add and remove. And if you notice, because we recommend in the same change to only target the same configuration classes. So when you're doing updates to the multiple items, please only target the same class, because if you have multiples, that can become very messy very quickly. So I can add a new ones from here. Much the same for impacted services. And it kind of lays it out for me in a good view. And once I'm all done with this section and no longer interested in it, I can just go ahead and collapse it. Next, let's guess what? We haven't assigned this yet. So instead of us requesting approval and finding out that we haven't assigned it, if we follow the steps here, we basically know that we need to provide the assignment. And we also can provide the reasoning here for the work notes for why we have assigned to this particular team, or any additional information we would like to share with the team we have assigned this to. So let's go ahead and populate it. As you see, with assignment, it's done and dusted situation. So once you've done it, the section disappears for you. So you don't need to see it when you already populated it. Of course, we also would want to go ahead and schedule our change. And one of the key differences we have with the scheduling here, as opposed to the schedule in UI16, we pop up the calendar for you straight away. So you can actually go ahead and have a look at what's going on around the time you want to schedule the change. So let's say we want to schedule it at the same time as the other one. So we select schedule, and this calendar will refresh, and you will see that where our change is scheduled, And you will also see that we have a maintenance window around that time. So this actually can aid you in understanding what's going on within your infrastructure, which is related to this particular CIs or this particular services at the same time. And we show you this calendar upfront instead of you needing to dig for it later on. Then, of course, once we're done with schedule, and also if you notice, it tells you that the conflicts have been detected. One thing we haven't done is we have not calculated the risk. And this also supports the risk assessment. So you can have your assessment questionnaire pop up. But in our case, we don't have that installed. So we just have go for a simple risk calculation. So it calculated the risk. And last but not least, if we need to handle this change in portions and we need to create the change tasks, we can basically go ahead and add additional tasks if we want to. If you notice, when I opened the information panel, it's also been updating as we've been providing additional pieces of information for the change. So now we have our risk value here, and you can find out how it's been calculated and what contributed to it. So in this particular case, it's a risk conditional rules which called out to it. You know what the assignment group is, and you can also go ahead and contact the requester. So I can go and find out the contact information for the requester and get in touch if I need to find out more context about the change. So now, perfect. So I have filled in all of the bits here. I'm happy with them. So let's go ahead and request approval. So in request approval change, once again, the sections we have available changed. And also what you notice is there's a new section which appeared on top of summary, which previously always was the first section shown to us. So if you look in here, this allows us to kind of post any potential questions or any comments we might want to add to this particular change, because now it's in the assess state, the approvals have been requested. So if I'm an approver, when I go in, I might want to ask some questions. And because now the work notes and comments are becoming important and a lot more important to the change, we are now showing activity stream on the side, and you can interact with activity stream and see what's been going on and what's been happening with this particular change request. Of course, we still can recalculate the risk. We can see the schedule, and you can go back into the schedule and have a look what's going on within it. And again, you can also switch your view from the schedule page. So you might be wondering at this point, how all of this hangs together and how do we define how all of these sections display, when they display, and what's happening with them. So I will show you how all of this configured and how you can leverage it to start tailor-making the overview tab for your particular usage. So if I go to Service Operations Workspace, you will see that there is a configuration section. So we will jump into it and have a look what's available for us. So if you go into the change management and you go to the change record, we have added ability to configure everything you need to do about the overview tab. And the first thing I'll show you is how you can, for example, add additional fields into your summary. So at the moment, summary only contains short description, and justification. So let's say I want to also add implementation plan to it because that's something I want to see. This also is applicable to any custom fields you might have, because what it does is it takes you into the form editor. And what I can do from here is I can scroll down to the summary section. So each of the different parts you see where they contain a form in the overview tab, they all have a corresponding form section. So in this particular case, it is a summary section I'm interested in. And you know what? I want to drop it from 2 column to 1 column because I want to give my description and my justification a bit more space to breathe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it into 1 column. And then within our planning section, we already have an implementation plan field. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag and drop an implementation plan to sit just underneath the justification in my summary section. So I will go ahead and save it. And as I mentioned, you can also do it with pretty much every single form field. So if I press on a little plus icon here, you can see that there is a whole host of fields available to you. And this is basically every single field available on your change forms. So I can basically go ahead and add it in if I would like to. So for example, if I want, let's say CAB required icon, tick box here, I can also go ahead and add it here. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's see how does this look like when we refresh. So once we refresh, you see that our implementation plan has already appeared in. CAB required, unfortunately, is not one of supported fields because it's not a text field, so it doesn't appear in the short summary here. But if you go into the editing here, I think we just in general don't support it, so I picked a kind of bad field for this. So we support just the text fields for this. So you see that our implementation plan is already here. And you can start populating it, and it will appear in every single time the summary section is displayed. So you can actually add new fields, you can remove the fields, you can reorder them, you can do whatever you would like with the forms and with the view you have in a smaller collapsed views like this. Now, the other item we allow you to do comes from the containers. And containers is essentially what you will get available for you for out of the box is based on different states of change, but it actually can be a lot more powerful than that. So for example, currently we are in the assess state. So let's have a look how the assess state looks like here. And how is it actually configured? So in here we said, okay, the name of this is going to be assess. This is just a nice readable name for us to use. It's based off the change request table. That's the only table we support for this particular configuration. And the state is assess. But eagle-eyed amongst you will spot that it's a condition builder, which means what I can do is, if I want to tailor this to a specific assignment group, for example, I can say an assignment group is hardware, for example. So this can allow you to start tailoring what sections you have appearing, not only to the state, but to really any aspect of the change request. And it's extremely, extremely powerful. And more than that, we actually support also advanced condition. An advanced condition is a server-side script where you can potentially run other script includes, or you can run, or you can call out to different records to validate things and check on things. Again, the caveat with that is the more complex condition you make, obviously the slower it can be to evaluate, depending on how many calls into the database it might need to make. So with this in mind, please be mindful of how complex you make those conditions. And usually the indication when you have something which is incredibly complex or you need to do a lot of checks, you might have overcomplicated your process a bit too much, and you need to take a step back and review it and see how you can simplify it, how you can streamline it, because the more complex process is, the harder it is for you to maintain it going forward. So, but we offer you flexibility to either use advanced condition or run of just the standard filter. And then here you already have things like approval, journal fields, summary, and backend task. But you also, approver only will appear for the users who are listed as approver for this record. So this particular section is unique. So if you happen to be, you go to approvers here, if I happen to be, for example, logged in as David Lu, I will see the approver section. So let's actually very quickly show this and impersonate, for example, David Lu. Now let me actually just, for simplicity, let me open this in a new tab, just to make it easier for us to access. Now go ahead and impersonate David. So you see that there is now a little approval section appeared for you in the front, at the top, because you are one of the approvers for this change. So you can go ahead and make your approval decision from here. So if I go ahead again and I'll go back to impersonating system administrator, so we can proceed through this. So again, you can customize the ordering. So as you can see, there is a display order. So you can go ahead and change it. You can change also what heading they display in here. So if, for example, instead of questions and comments, you want to say notes, I believe you can just do it through here. And if you refresh, you can see that this now has been customized and reads notes. So this gives you ability to start tailoring what the overview type displays to your particular change process, to your needs, and really make it nice and interactive for the users. The main thing we were trying to reinforce with this is ability to guide your user through the things they need to complete just in this particular state of the change. This is why what we ship out of the box is very, very heavily state focused. So with this in mind, again, you can customize it to your heart's content. If you want to customize the sections yourself, you will need to go to UI Builder, and I will show you where we are in UI Builder. So on top of customizing what form fields are displayed and what you get in a collapsed view, you can also do more customizations because, for example, we have our sections like scope and impact, which of course contain the cards, which are not configurable through the records I showed you here. What you need to do for this is if you go to experiences and you go to Service Operations Workspace, let me just very quickly close this. Oh, sorry, I sometimes cannot spell. If you switch to Service Operations Workspace, if you look at, so there's going to be, I always lose it, perfect. So there is a change overview viewport page. If you go inside of it, this is essentially our kind of central hub for all of the different sections you have. And based on the parameters passed into this page, it will render a different viewport. So all of the different sections available are present here. So if I want to go ahead and I want to edit my impact section, I just navigate to impact, subpage, and I can start making edits to it in UI Builder to make it even more tailored to my needs. And again, much the same with all of the subpages, you have ability to define scripted screen conditions, and audiences, which means that you can change who sees what for this particular section. So you can actually have different views of this section targeted at different users or depending on the parameters passed into it. So this allows you to essentially also edit this further and make it really, really yours. But again, as with anything, where you edit this is a separation between the configuration and the actual pages themselves. When you edit this, you will end up owning those pages. So if you make a modification to the impact page, you will end up basically owning it. So this is essentially the things we've done for change. And one thing I would also like to mention, I'm not going to be showing it here because we already had a dedicated session to it. As of version 7.0 of SOW, we also have CAB management, change advisory board available in SOW, and it's been fully ported across. We made a dedicated session, a dedicated recording on how to customize that, because that's also fully customizable for you. It uses a slightly different approach. It's one of the new features of UIB for this. And also some of the new sneak peek at the new features which are coming as a part of SOW 8, because we've been zeroing in on some of the accessibility improvements for this. And with that, I think there have been some things happening in Q&A. I'm not entirely sure because I can't quite see it properly.
Yes, yeah, there is. So first question is, can you change the calendar to see further than 1 week? For example, 1 month out when scheduling your request.
Not out of the box. You might need to modify the calendar component itself in here. And I haven't played enough around with calendar because we are kind of borrowing it from another team. We are borrowing, and this is one of the good things with UI Builder and SOW. We can reuse a lot of things.
Okay. The second question is, why would the change model allow the user to request approval before the required information like scheduled dates are populated? And I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
So what we ship out of the box is the most common denominator. So we try to be as less opinionated as we can within UI 16. I assume this is a question around UI 16 and Classic. And this is because we don't know how your change process is going to be set up. So we give you the most common, simplest denominator, and then it's up to you to go and customize it.
Okay. I think there's a very specific question. how can I add the following format, text, image, etc., and the change so that it's displayed together? Currently, the image is separated from the test. So I think that might be very specific that we could answer maybe
That's Yeah, that
okay.
might need a bit of investigation because I need to understand where exactly you're trying to add the image. Off the top of my head, the only places I can think of is things like work notes or comments, because I don't think we support it anywhere else, and maybe email field.
Yeah, I agree.
So I
We
need
just
to
need,
figure out what exactly we're looking at with that.
yeah. Can you add fields that reference knowledge-based articles? I know that in incident you can, but I think they're specifically asking about change.
Yes, so what you can do is, so again, you can do it two ways. So if the field is already on the change request form and it's available in the change request form, you can literally just go ahead and add it via, so if you remember, we went to the configuration, we went to the change request, we went to the record page, and then you can add it, and let me just get the exact verbiage, section fields. So you can go ahead and add that section field into the correct section. Also, if it's not there, you will be able to modify, like I showed you, you can go to UIB and modify things in UIB if you want to. I would leave UIB modifications as a last resort if you have something very heavily custom.
Okay. And I think, let me just, that was answered last. What was the warning? Oh, I don't know if we can answer this question because I'm not sure where you were with the warning message. Chance of losing changes. I wasn't sure where she was.
So which
Well,
one the warning messages?
yeah, what warning message up there? Chance of losing changes during updates and upgrades. So,
Oh, I believe this is to do with scheduling. So when you are scheduling, and this is why we try to show you the calendar in SOW so you can see what else is happening. Because if there are more changes going at the same time with the same services, that can be problematic for you because what you are doing might be impacted by the other changes going in or going in extremely close to it. This is why we try to show you the calendar up front for this during the scheduling.
okay. And then we did have someone ask, is CAB readily available? And if so, how do you get to it? And I think I'll put in the chat the link.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Because that talks about all things CAB, and I recommend for anybody who's interested in CAB reviewing it because it's also talking about how you can go ahead and customize the CAB.
Okay. So yeah, that's the link. And then I think we have another question. Is the example, what is the approver list in the example, what is the approver list based on? Who is authorized to approve what?
So this is based on the approval policies, and if you go to SOW configuration page, you also have access to what change approval policies you have configured now. Let me just very quickly share my screen so I can show you folks where to find this, because the configuration page for change specifically is adding a lot more things than what you have for some other ones, and it's also a lot more about your modern change process. So you can actually go ahead and look at your change approval policies through here. So this is kind of your one-stop shop, which brings everything change related to you. So as you can see, there is a number of change approval policies already created, and there is one which happens to exist for normal change policy. And also you can see the change models through here, which again, we highly recommend to start migrating from the old purely state-based approach to start building the change models because they are a lot more flexible and they allow you to cater for your needs a lot better. Also, one thing I had forgotten to mention, the problem configuration is very, very similar for Overview tab. It's pretty much identical to how the change one works. So if you're interested in problem, everything we talked about change is applicable for this here too. You just need to navigate to the problem record instead of the change record.
Okay. And then we have a question was, we have some custom scripts on change tasks. Will we lose them?
So I think most of the client scripts work when they migrate into the workspaces. There are some exemptions. I can't remember around exactly which APIs. I would suggest opening your form and checking it and checking what you might be missing. But also equally, I recommend looking at change models and overview tab, also catering your overview tab so you don't need those scripts. This is the reason why we created an overview tab, and the reason why it is the way it is set up is to not to kind of require you to a lot less fall back onto the UI policies and client scripts.
Okay. I think the next one is, will custom changes cause skipped records in the future upgrades?
I'm interested what is when you make the changes, yes. So if you change one of course, with UI Builder, much the same as with everything else, if you upgrade something, this will skip upgrade for that particular record when you're upgrading. It works identical to this. And also if you update, so the configuration records themselves, we are not likely to touch because the configuration is there for you to kind of give you an example of what to do and give you a very, very simple out of the box setup, and then for you to build on top of that. So those ones we are highly unlikely to touch. But of course, if you are touching anything inside of UI Builder, it will not be upgraded the moment you adopted it. One of the ways to work around this is to duplicate the page and create a new variant. If you give your variant a lower order than the existing one, it will take precedence. So if you're working with updating UIB pages, one of the good practices might be duplicate, make your changes, and because this means that if you ever want to roll back, the vanilla page is still there for you. You can deactivate it or reduce the ordering on it. So increase the ordering on it. And then you can go back to it and potentially port your changes. Or if something which you like becomes available and you no longer need a custom one, you can just fall back to the vanilla one, out of the box one.
Okay. And then what is the replacement of conflict checker in Service Operations Workspace?
We actually have conflict checker already also in SOW. So that's already been ported. And again, if you notice any missing parity, please let us know and we'll add it to our backlog and basically aim to seek how and when we implement it. So CAB was one of the examples of this. CAB was one of the big features which we had missing from SOW. So we went ahead and reported it across.
Okay, and then speaking of CAB, someone asked if we already have a pretty extensive CAB process built out, what are the benefits to the CAB workbench, if any at all? I think there's a ton of benefits. We have a lot of YouTube videos around CAB, as well as CAB in the Service Operations Workspace that we put in. But did you have any other thoughts to
I would
that?
say the main benefit for me would be the fact that it already integrates with the whole SOW experience. So it keeps you within the same experience. It keeps all of the records you open within the same experience. So it is nice and familiar. And the more your users, of course, use it, the more familiar they become with it, the easier it is for them to navigate.
Exactly.
Also, the CAB we have, it's been pretty extensively stress tested, the original one. The SOW, we're still doing stress testing on it, so it can support larger volumes of data. And we are trying to get it to support larger volumes of data. But again, if you spot any issues, please let us know.
Yeah, and from the process side, you basically do your meeting within the CAB. And then I think that's an awesome feature as well. And everything is in SOW. If you need any of our resources, make sure you go to our Now Create, ServiceNow Impact. Ensure that you get training and certification because we talked about that in OCM. And then any expert services, go there as well. And then for that, we thank you so much for your time and amazing work, and shout out to all of our experts and speakers today. Thank you.